Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to dive deep into Alpha, the Blade of Enmity, one of the most underrated, misunderstood, yet extremely powerful fighters in Mobile Legends. A lot of players avoid Alpha because he doesn't have flashy mechanics like Ling or Fanny. In fact, if you look at the stats, Alpha has one of the lowest win rates in the game right now, sitting at only 45.89% in glory rank and above over the past 30 days. And honestly, that's not because he's weak, it's because most people don't know how to use him properly. So today, I'm going to explain everything you need to know about Alpha, his passive, his skills, his builds, emblems, strategies for early, mid, and late game, his strengths and weaknesses, his synergy with supports, how to fight against tanks, and even small hidden tips that separate good Alpha players from great Alpha players. By the end of this guide, you'll know exactly why Alpha can absolutely melt through enemies like a hot knife through butter, and why in the right hands he becomes an unstoppable machine on the battlefield. Before we even talk about his active skills, we need to understand Alpha's passive, because it's the reason he's so deadly. Alpha is always accompanied by Beta, his mechanical partner. Every time Alpha hits an enemy with his skills, Beta marks them. If the same target gets hit again, Beta locks onto them and fires a laser, dealing true damage that ignores all defense, while applying a brief slow. Now here's where it gets interesting. Once an enemy has two marks, even Alpha's basic attack can trigger Beta's laser again. This means every time you weave in a basic attack after casting a skill, you multiply your damage. This passive is the key to Alpha's strength. It punishes tanks, it punishes squishies, and it keeps pressure on the enemy. And because it's true damage, no armor or shield item can stop it. Alpha's first skill, Rotary Impact, fires an energy wave in a straight line. It deals physical damage and slows enemies by 40% for a short duration. This skill is your main poke, your chase tool, and a crucial setup ability. But here's something most Alpha players don't realize. Skill 1 has a trailing effect. Even if you miss the initial cast, if the enemy moves into the path of the wave, they'll still get hit and marked. That means you should aim not where the enemy is, but where they're going. Use it to cut off escape routes, zone enemies in tight spaces, or punish enemies who think they've dodged. Landing skill 1 doesn't just apply a mark, it also slows them, which sets you up perfectly for skill 2 or your ultimate. Alpha's second skill, Force Swing, is the bread and butter of his kit. He swings his blade in a fan-shaped area, dealing damage and healing himself for each enemy hit. Beta also follows up with an extra attack dealing true damage. This is your sustain skill. The more enemies you hit, the more you heal, and the longer you can stay in fights. Here's a secret tip. Cast skill 2 right before you expect to get crowd controlled. Even if you're stunned or knocked up, the swing will still go through, applying marks and healing you. This often means that by the time you come out of the CC, you already have marks on your enemy and Beta ready to strike. And just like skill 1, skill 2 also has a slight trailing effect. Aim it not exactly where your target is, but slightly ahead, where they'll be walking or dashing into. This makes it almost impossible for enemies to escape, because once you stack 2 marks, Beta slows them even more, allowing you to keep chaining skills and damage. Now, let's talk about Alpha's ultimate, Spear of Alpha. Alpha commands Beta to dive into a target area, dealing damage and stunning enemies. Then, Alpha charges toward the same area, knocking up enemies along the way, and when he lands, Beta fires multiple lasers, dealing more true damage. This is your primary initiation tool. It's what lets Alpha start fights, dive backlines, or even escape sticky situations. But the key is accuracy. Don't just spam your ultimate. Aim carefully, because missing it can cost you a fight. The best combo is simple but deadly. Engage with ultimate, follow up with skill 2 for sustain and true damage, use skill 1 to slow and keep marks active, and weave in basics to maximize Beta's lasers. Done right, this combo can deal as much damage as Saber's full burst, except Alpha does it to multiple targets at once. Let's talk about a secret mechanic with Alpha's ultimate that most players don't know. Alpha's ult already has decent range and a built-in slow effect, which makes it a strong engage or escape tool. But here's the hidden trick. If you click and aim your ultimate even as crowd control lands on you, it will still trigger. That means if you predict an incoming stun, you can ult either into the fight to commit or out of the fight to escape. Here's a practical example. I often use Alpha's ultimate to tank Johnson's car crash. The moment I see him flying in, I precast my ultimate, let the car hit me, and as soon as the stun lands, my ultimate dash still goes off. The result? Johnson crashes into me, but my dash sends me flying far enough away that the enemy team can't chase me down. I completely deny their engage, and instead, they're the ones left out of position. This is one of Alpha's hidden strengths. His ultimate isn't just a damage tool, it's also a way to outplay CC chains and reposition yourself when enemies least expect it. Now let's talk about items, because Alpha's build path is where his power really comes together. Tough boots or warrior boots? Start with boots. Tough boots are amazing when you're facing heavy crowd control, because they reduce the duration of stuns and slows. If CC isn't a problem, warrior boots give you extra defense and let you brawl harder. War Axe, core item, gives 35 physical attack, 400 HP, 10% cooldown reduction, and 12% spell vamp. The passive build stacks as you fight, increasing damage and letting you sustain longer. This makes Alpha tankier, deadlier, and able to duel or tank objectives with ease. Sky Piercer provides 60 adaptive attack and 15 movement speed with an execute style passive. This item is cheap, gives mobility, and makes Alpha's burst lethal. Squishies and even tanks melt instantly when paired with Beta's true damage. Queen's Wings gives 750 HP, 30 adaptive attack, 10% cooldown reduction, and 10% spell vamp. Its passive reduces damage taken by 30% when you drop below 40% HP, and also reduces cooldowns. This makes Alpha incredibly hard to kill, allowing him to spam skills and heal back mid-fight. Winter Crown provides 45 adaptive attack, 400 HP and 5% cooldown. Its active freeze lets you dive enemies, cast your combo, and then freeze before dying. Meanwhile, skill 2 continues to heal and mark enemies even while frozen. It's perfect for tower dives or baiting enemy focus. Brute Force Breastplate grants 800 HP, 20 physical defense, 10% cooldown, and a passive that increases movement speed and reduces control duration when you use skills or attacks. This synergizes perfectly with Alpha's playstyle. Every skill cast makes you tankier and harder to lock down. Together, these items give Alpha a mix of sustain, survivability, anti-CC, mobility, and damage. They all synergize, making him strong in extended fights, team fights, and objectives. This Alpha build has the best synergy of movement speed, HP, cooldown reduction, and crowd control resistance. When we discussed emblems, we will synergize that. For emblems, go Fighter. Base gives you Spell Vamp, synergizing with War Axe, Skill 2, and Queen's Wings. First talent, Thrill for extra adaptive attack. Second, Festival of Blood for more Spell Vamp, or Seasoned Hunter if you're jungling and want to snowball by farming faster. Core talent is Killing Spree. It heals 15% of your lost HP and gives 20% movement speed when you get a kill. Since Alpha shreds enemies down to 30% HP easily, this talent keeps you alive and lets you chase non-stop. This emblem setup makes Alpha a true sustained fighter who snowballs harder the longer the fight goes. Now let's break down Alpha's build in detail. The build I gave you earlier, in my opinion, is the best standard build for Alpha. The first 4 items are essentially his new core, and they're what make him the unstoppable machine we've been talking about. They give you everything you need: sustain, cooldowns, spell vamp, HP, and damage. But as with any hero, there are times when you'll want to adjust based on the match. For example, if your teammates are already building Skypiercer, maybe on a Kadita or a Granger, sometimes it's smarter for you to build Brute Force Breastplate instead, just to bring more tankiness and utility to the team. If you're up against a Joy or a lineup with lots of magic damage, you can replace Skypiercer with Radiant Armor. This is a great option because it smooths out poke and lets you survive long mage fights. Personally, I really like Skypiercer when I'm ahead or equal, and even when I'm behind. Why? Because it gives Alpha the burst and finishing power to turn fights around, and it synergizes beautifully with the rest of his kit and items. But again, it's all situational. Adapt to the game. Now let's go in depth on Winter Truncheon, because this item deserves special attention. We've already talked about how Alpha's Skill 1 and Skill 2 have trailing effects that continue to damage and apply marks even if you're stunned or frozen. Winter Truncheon makes this even stronger, because while you're frozen, your skills can still connect, Beta can still attack, and enemies can still be marked. That alone makes it a perfect fit for Alpha. But really, it's about the timing. You typically build Winter Truncheon right around the point when your team is in control and looking to end the game. That's usually when the first Lord reaches the enemy base around minute 9, or maybe the second Lord a bit later. At this stage, you might not have enough gold for immortality yet, but Winter Truncheon gives you a cheap, powerful way to stay alive in these crucial fights. Here's a great example. With Alpha's ultimate, you can dive the enemy tower during a Lord push.
You can kill or heavily chunk an enemy and then use the Lord's shield push effect to escape safely. Enemies often forget about that push effect. They'll throw heavy ultimates on you, but even if you're CC'd, you get pushed far away from the tower into safety. To be honest, you don't even need Winter Truncheon to survive this because it happens very quickly. But if enemies chase you afterward, Winter becomes your lifesaver. You freeze, stall them out, and during that time, your team can collapse and punish them, while minions push naturally deeper into their base. Another benefit is how Winter Truncheon lets you safely frontline. You can step up, use your skills to mark enemies, and if the enemy tank suddenly commits with crowd control, you can freeze instantly to avoid the punish. This creates a safety net that makes Alpha even harder to deal with. And finally, Winter Truncheon is a very flexible buy. You're not stuck with it forever. Once you've gotten value out of it, you can quickly sell it and transition into items like Immortality for the revive, or Rose Gold Meteor for the magic shield. And if Winter Truncheon doesn't suit your playstyle in that match, no problem. Alpha has plenty of other defensive options. You can grab Rose Gold Meteor against burst magic, Immortality for late-game teamfights, Twilight Armor against crit-heavy heroes, Radiant Armor against poke mages, or even Brute Force Breastplate or Antique Cuirass for all-around tankiness.
One of Alpha's biggest strengths, and something people rarely talk about, is his ability to tank and sustain the Lord. Ever since the Lord's damage was buffed, traditional tank junglers have struggled. Guardian Helmet got nerfed, sustained tanks feel weaker, and objective dances are harder. But Alpha thrives here. With War Axe giving Spell Vamp and Brute Force giving HP and defense, Alpha can keep his stacks rolling while fighting the Lord. He heals, he sustains, and he enters the fight already stacked up, always ready to throw down with max damage when the enemy contests. This makes Alpha one of the most reliable heroes for securing the Lord, because he doesn't just survive the fight. He walks into the actual team fight afterward already warmed up and stacked. Here's another hidden strength. Alpha destroys tanks. Most burst assassins like Saber, Ling, or Aamon lose a lot of value when faced with a good tank. The moment a tank walks up to provide vision, those assassins can't waste their precious skills on them, so they back away. But Alpha does the opposite. He welcomes tanks. He can freely use his skills to mark them, trigger beta, and shred them down like butter. So when tanks overextend, Alpha doesn't need teammates to punish them. He can do it all by himself. And that's why he flips the script on teamfights. The enemy expects their tank to soak damage, but Alpha melts them and creates an opening. Another major strength from Alpha comes from his short cooldowns and stacking power with War Axe. After killing one enemy, Alpha is often in peak condition to immediately dive onto a second target. Think about it. War Axe stacks are already maxed, Brute Force stacks are up, and Beta is firing true damage with every mark. You're not weaker after a kill, you're stronger. And this creates a snowball effect in teamfights. Once an enemy gets caught out of position and overextends, their teammates almost always try to rush in and help. But that's exactly what Alpha wants, because by stepping forward, those teammates are walking straight into kill range. Here's the beauty of Alpha's kit. Sometimes you don't even need to use your ultimate for that first kill. A couple of skill 2s, skill 1, and empowered basic attacks with Beta's lasers are enough to finish the job. This conserves your ultimate for what comes next. Other times, you can line up multiple enemies and ult them together,
dragging both into Beta's lasers and turning one pick into a team wipe. Or you can simply use the enemy in front of you as a stepping stone. Build your stacks on them, sustain off their health with skill 2, then completely ignore them and dive straight into the backline where the real damage dealers are. This is what makes Alpha so unique. He doesn't just stop after one kill. He's built to chain kills together, to punish enemies who think they're safe, and to keep going when most fighters would already be forced to retreat. Alpha also works beautifully with supports like Angela and Florin. Angela's Heartguard ult shields Alpha and lets her trigger Flask of Oasis, giving Alpha even more sustain while diving deep. Florin, on the other hand, boosts Alpha's healing in survivability, making him almost unkillable in extended fights. So if you have a duo partner, pairing Alpha with these supports makes him even scarier. Now, Alpha isn't perfect. He struggles against mobile assassins like Lancelot, Hayabusa, Joy, and Benedetta. They can dash around, dodge his skills, and avoid being marked. He also suffers when the enemy heavily coordinates CC. Chain stuns will shut him down. Heroes like CC can be problematic in team fights too because she can disrupt his rhythm. The key is, don't fight these heroes on their terms. Don't chase Joy around endlessly. Don't duel Lancelot in open space. Instead, fight on your terms, around objectives, in tight areas where your AoE can't be dodged, and with your team backing you.
Now, let's talk about Alpha's biggest weakness. And this is something most people don't understand until they've played him a lot. His biggest weakness is when enemies kite him. Kiting is a term used in Mobile Legends and other MOBAs to describe fighting while retreating. Basically, it means the enemy is dealing damage to you while backing away, and you can't effectively hit back. Alpha can win almost every 1v1 fight under the right circumstances, but that changes completely if the enemy is able to kite him. If they can keep hitting him with skills and basic attacks while he's only hitting air, then suddenly the matchup becomes one-sided in their favor. Let's take CC as an example. She can be extremely troublesome for Alpha. Her ultimate gives her enhanced movement speed, a powerful slow effect, and the ability to constantly reposition. This makes it very easy for her to sidestep Alpha's skill 1 and to stay just out of range of his basic attacks. And this brings us to the bottom line. Never put yourself in a position where the enemy can deal damage to you, but you cannot deal damage back. This is the fastest way to lose a fight on Alpha. Now, Alpha's basic attacks are an important part of his kit because they help trigger Beta's passive damage. But there's also a small downside here. The more you stop to auto-attack, the more time you're giving the enemy to reposition, dash away, or even just kite you by walking backward. That's why sometimes, instead of committing to multiple basic attacks, it's actually better to keep repositioning while weaving in your skill 2. Remember, Alpha's skill 2 can be used while moving, which allows you to continue pressuring the enemy, sustaining off of the healing, and most importantly, getting into a better position to stick onto them. Still, basic attacks matter. They're how you maximize your damage and trigger Beta consistently. And this is exactly why Endless Battle used to be considered Alpha's core item. It amplified his basic attacks and gave a powerful extra true damage proc every time you cast a skill. But here's the problem. Endless Battle is now too expensive and the stats are inefficient compared to other items. It just doesn't fit Alpha's playstyle anymore, especially when better, cheaper, and more synergistic options exist. That's why I've built a better build for you guys, one that plays to Alpha's strengths without wasting gold on overpriced items. Let's close with a few small but powerful tips. Aim skill 1 where the enemy is going, not where they are. Remember the trailing effect. Cast skill 2 before you're CC'd. It still triggers, heals, and marks enemies even if you're stunned. Always weave basic attacks between skills. It guarantees Beta's lasers and maximizes true damage. Don't be afraid to hit tanks. Unlike most heroes, Alpha shreds tanks and punishes them for walking up. Use Winter Crown actively. Dive, drop your combo, freeze, and watch as your team cleans up while you survive. So that's Alpha, the Blade of Enmity. Misunderstood by most, underpicked and ranked, but secretly one of the strongest fighters when played correctly. He can shred tanks, dive squishies, sustain through objectives, and punish overextensions like no other. His low win rate doesn't reflect his true power. It only shows that most players aren't using him right. But now, you know the truth. And if you take these tips, builds, and strategies into your games, you'll turn Alpha into a monster that dominates the battlefield. Thanks for watching. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to drop a like, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more in-depth hero guides. See you on the battlefield, and good luck mastering Alpha.